Have you ever wondered what really happens in a restaurant after you've paid your bill and headed home? What if I told you the real show begins right as the doors are about to lock? Imagine cleaning up a five-star restaurant, only to find the aftermath of a full-blown food fight, or a customer trying to pay with a pet iguana at 2 a.m. These aren't made-up stories. We're revealing the true, shocking tales from restaurant staff about the absolute craziest things customers have done when closing time hits. Prepare to be stunned. Welcome to the dark side of hospitality, where last call is sometimes just a friendly suggestion. We're about to expose the baffling, the infuriating, and the downright bizarre moments that staff endure while trying to close up shop. Get ready for a deep dive into the human psyche at 2 in the morning, a time when common sense seems to just evaporate. Let's start with the classic closing time villain, the drunken disaster. We've all seen them, maybe even been them, but from the other side of the bar, it's a whole different story. I spoke with a bartender named Chloe who worked at a popular downtown pub. She told me about one night, a guy, well into his cups, decided the bar's closing was his personal cue for a one-man show. He hopped onto a table and started belting out an opera classic, or at least his version of it. The whole staff just froze, mops in hand, watching this guy give the performance of his life to an audience of stacked chairs. Chloe said they couldn't even be mad. It was just too absurd. They ended up applauding him, which thankfully was the cue he needed to take a bow and finally stumble out the door. But not all late-night guests are so entertaining. A server named Mike shared a story about a group that simply refused to leave. The kitchen was closed, the lights were up, and the staff was literally cleaning around them. This group just sat there, nursing cold coffees for over an hour past closing. Mike tried everything, politely reminding them of the time, loudly clanking dishes, even turning off the music. Nothing worked. Finally, the manager had to come out and tell them, "Folks, my staff has families to go home to. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here." The sheer entitlement was what got to Mike. It's like they thought the restaurant was their own personal living room. Then you have the lingering lunatics, who aren't necessarily drunk, just odd. A waitress from a 24-hour diner, which only closes for deep cleaning once a week, told me about their closing night ritual. They'd get a regular who would come in 10 minutes before they locked the doors, order a single slice of pie, and then proceed to cut it into at least 30 tiny, microscopic pieces. He would eat each piece with painstaking slowness. The staff nicknamed him the surgeon. They'd finish all their cleaning, cash out, and just sit and watch him perform his pie surgery until the very last second. He never spoke a word, just methodically ate his pie and left. It was creepy, but also kind of a tradition. Now let's move on to the messes. Oh, the messes. You'd think adults would know how to behave, but closing time seems to unleash a primal need to create chaos. One of the most common complaints I heard from staff was about what happens in the bathrooms right before closing. It's like a final act of defiance. A cleaner from a high-end steakhouse told me he once walked into the men's room after the last customer left and found that someone had carefully unwound every single roll of toilet paper and draped it over the stalls, the sinks and the mirrors like they were decorating for a mummy's birthday party. There was no damage, just a mind-boggling amount of tedious, unnecessary cleanup. He just stood there and wondered, why, what goes through a person's head to do this? And it's not just the bathrooms. Food fights are surprisingly common. Not the fun, cinematic kind, but the petty, passive-aggressive kind. A server named Maria told me about a couple who had a quiet argument at their table. 15 minutes after they left, long after closing, she went to clear their table and found a war zone. They had squirted ketchup packets into the water glasses, crumbled breadsticks into the sugar dispenser, and built a little sculpture out of mashed potatoes in the middle of the table. It was a silent, sticky protest. Maria said it was more infuriating than if they had just yelled at each other. It felt so personal and was just a miserable way to end a 12-hour shift. The creativity people have for causing inconvenience is truly astounding. This brings us to the "are you serious" moments. These are the times when customers push boundaries so far, you can't help but laugh to keep from crying. A chef I talked to, let's call him Dave, had his kitchen close at 10 p.m. sharp. At 10:05, a waitress came back with an order for a well-done steak. Dave explained the grills were off and cooling down. The customer was told this, but insisted. They said they'd wait. The waitress came back, begging Dave. So, he had to fire up the grill again, cook this one steak, and send it out. The worst part, the customer sent it back, claiming it was overcooked. At that point, Dave just walked out of the kitchen, went straight to the table, and said, "Ma'am, the kitchen has been closed for 45 minutes. The restaurant is closed. This steak is a ghost. It doesn't exist. Now it's time for you to do the same." The shock on her face was apparently priceless. Another unbelievable story came from a hostess at a family restaurant. A family of 4 came in right at closing. The parents seemed exhausted. They ordered, ate quickly, and paid. The staff was cleaning up and noticed the family was gone. But their 7-year-old son was fast asleep in the booth. They had just left him. The hostess thought it was a mistake, that they'd be right back. 10 minutes passed, 20. The manager finally had to call the police. The parents eventually returned, frantic, saying they completely forgot him. How do you forget your child? The staff was just speechless. It's a reminder that at closing time, literally anything is possible. So, how do staff survive this nightly chaos? They develop survival strategies. A common one is the slow fade. They gradually turn the lights up brighter and brighter, switch the music to something really jarring, or turn it off completely, and start making a lot of noise with cleaning equipment. It's a non-verbal way of saying, the party's over. Some bartenders have a special closing time playlist. Think annoying children's songs or death metal, depending on the crowd. It usually clears the room pretty fast, but beyond these funny tactics, there's a real psychological toll. Dealing with these situations night after night is exhausting. It erodes your faith in humanity a little bit. Staff feel disrespected and invisible. It's more than just an inconvenience. It has a fundamental lack of consideration for them as human beings who are tired and want to go home, just like everyone else. The best survival strategy, they told me, is camaraderie. The staff bands together, shares a laugh about the absurdity of it all, and supports each other. That shared experience of surviving another crazy close is what gets them through. So, what can we learn from all this? It's simple, really. Be mindful. A restaurant is a business, not a public park. When the staff says they're closing, it means they've been on their feet for hours and have a whole other shift of cleaning ahead of them before they can finally rest. The next time you're the last person in a restaurant, just take a look around, see the tired faces of the staff. Pack it up, say thank you, and leave, and maybe leave a good tip. Because after the stories we've heard tonight, it's clear they've more than earned it. Thanks so much for watching and diving into the wild world of restaurant closing times with us. If you have your own crazy story, drop it in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into the stories you've never heard. See you next time.